I talk, you listen. Welcome to my one-man panel of madness. Hi everyone, this is Dr. Jiahu, and I have just come back from Gallifrey One, and there's so much to talk about, but I just thinking about it, looking at my notes, it would be like 6-part episodes, so I'm gonna try to be brief about it. But anyways, in case you don't even know what Gallifrey One is, Gallifrey One is one of the longest Doctor Who conventions here in the U.S., and it just celebrated its 31st year. Which is kind of cool because most conventions, they kind of come up and they kind of, disappear in time. But Gallifrey One's been around long enough that it still brings a very diverse group of fans, and they also include different types of genres. It's not just Doctor Who. There's a little bit of Star Trek. I mentioned before that there was a Babylon 5 reunion last year. So it's really a lot of fun, but it's very different than most other conventions. Most other conventions, you kind of just go to. You do your thing, you go to panels, signings, whatever, and then you just kind of go home. But throughout the 4 days, because it usually starts with an opening kind of party on Thursday night, it's like an ice cream social, ribbon trading, and so forth. It goes all the way through Sunday night. And even on Sunday, although the convention is officially done, there is still this, additional activity known as LobbyCon. It literally takes place in the lobby of the Marriott, LAX. And that starts... Traditionally now it's been starting on Wednesday evenings. And so we literally just take over that whole lobby space area, and there's people playing games, chatting up, people recording podcasts. You have the actual guests kind of mingling with you. I mean, it's a great environment. So it's very sad when it's over because, yeah, it's just sad. It's such a great weekend where you meet new people, you share your love of Doctor Who, sci-fi, comic books. You get to meet many of the, stars of Doctor Who. And one major star this year was Christopher Eccleston. Now, the reason this was so exciting was that Gallifrey One it's a much smaller convention. Like when you compare it to, this behemoth which is known as Comic-Con. Comic-Con is way up there in the thousands. Gallifrey One stays, I believe, roughly about less than 4,000. So it's a smaller convention. And so it gives you a lot more time to, spend time with the guests or spend time with people. So there's a lot more of a family feel. And every year at the closing ceremonies, there's one thing that almost every guest says about their experience at Gallifrey One, and that it's family. So it's not like you're going to a convention, it's the only convention where you don't feel like people are literally watching you or judging you or trying to figure out what you're all about. That's never there at Gallifrey One. People are taking photos, sharing ribbons. Ribbons are these, it's hard to explain, but they're literally ribbons. They're like satin ribbons, or in my case, I made some out of, canvas, which have quotes or sayings from favorite Doctor Who episodes, or actually any genre nowadays, because there was a Mandalorian one, which is kind of cool. A Baby Yoda. Or the child, whatever. So you trade these with other people. And people literally collect as many as they can. And they roll them up on their badge. And they want to have as many as they can. I mean, in past years, these have been even auctioned. Like, people collect so much. I think it was last year that there was a roll that Catherine Tate and John Berman were having this kind of fight to see who could collect the most ribbons. And I believe it was Catherine Tate that won. And I think she autographed it, and then she offered it as a donation for the annual, there's a sort of an annual charity event that happens, and the money from all the donations and the sales goes to that specific charity. And so, yeah, she beat out John Barrowman, but it's a big thing, and it's something that in other conventions they've tried to start up, but it's never taken hold. I know a few people have told me, and even shared on Facebook, that they've tried to go to other conventions and start the whole thing with ribbons. It just doesn't work. It's literally a Gallifrey One thing. But Chris Eccleston, my goodness, because it's such a smaller convention, you don't expect expect them to bring someone of that caliber, like Christopher Eccleston. Actually, even last year with Catherine Tate, that was something I never expected. So it's normally a lot of the classic Doctor Who actors and guest stars, and then occasionally you do get a new sort of guest who is either with the current series or maybe from a previous series. But that's as much as you get. And even in the past, Gallifrey One has stated, when they ask, recommendations or who people want to see, to not include the names of current Doctor or past Doctors of the modern era. Because again, it's just very difficult. So like no David Tennant, no Matt Smith, no Jodie Whittaker. But you know what? After Chris Eccleston, who knows? It actually, I was just thinking about the fact that, it definitely could happen. In this point now, I think it could happen. And of course, we had Peter Davison, who played the Fifth Doctor, and we all know who his son-in-law is. And it's just a matter of, some family persuasion, right, to get him and maybe Georgia to come down. And this is something we talked to our friend Brad at Gallifrey One, that it'd be great to have this family affair panel where you have Peter and David and Georgia talking about, sort of their lives and the different generations of the Doctor and so forth, having two Doctors in the family. But I've got to say, the Christopher Eccleston panel was one of the most warm and human, I don't know how to put this, panels I've done. And by that I mean that it wasn't like Chris Eccleston just talking about Doctor Who. He just opened up about so many different things of his life. Like, I didn't know that his father was going through dementia and a form of throat cancer while he was doing Doctor Who. And so one of my favorite episodes was actually the Dalek that he's in. And I always wondered why he was so angry at the Dalek. We didn't really know too much about the Time War yet at the time. So but now we know he was really venting all that sadness and anger that he was dealing with regards to his father, onto this Dalek, knowing that Father's Day is his favorite episode, because as he said, if he had a time machine, he would go back in time to see his parents as children playing and so forth. I mean, it was a very emotional, to say that I didn't cry like a baby a few times is an understatement, because I really did shed a lot of tears, in just listening to this person that was almost vilified. At one point, I think the BBC vilified him as, he walked away from Doctor Who and he walked away from the fans. And granted, he did spend a lot of time away from the fans. He didn't do conventions until just recently, really, just within the last few years. And a lot of it, I think, had to do with just all the politics and all the drama that he went through during his time on Doctor Who. And I do agree with something he's mentioned, specifically about, people saying, I wish we had more episodes with you, more series. But, he said it's good that we have those 13 episodes because that's our connection with him. And I don't really think he's going to do any more Doctor Who. I have a feeling just from the panel that, because even Big Finish was brought up, would he ever do Big Finish? I don't think that he is interested in doing anything further with Doctor Who. I think that what he's giving us, those 13 episodes, is all we have. That's our connection with him. But it was a great panel. Just understanding him as a man, as an actor, as a performer, sharing how proud he is that the Doctor can be a woman, because in his time growing up, you had to be a man. You couldn't show emotion. And now in this world, his children are waking up to a world that's a little bit more, accepting, and the Doctor can be a woman. The Doctor can be anything, which was great. He did celebrate his birthday, February 16th, there with us at Gallifrey One, which was great. And during the closing ceremonies, he did come back on stage. Normally the big actors, the big guests, sometimes they just have to leave right after the convention, so they don't stay around for closing ceremonies. But he did. He came out just, talking about how great of a birthday he's had and how much he loved the environment, because the convention is exclusively, mostly Doctor Who. And he hadn't attended one yet like that, where he had, all this love from people who love Doctor Who. And he really thought, he mentioned about bringing his kids and that they would have loved it. So it was just a great time and a great panel with him. As a matter of fact, you can probably look online. I think Screen Rant and a few other places have a whole, sort of write up on the panel. So you probably, I mean, it was, there was so much going on that I couldn't tell you everything we talked about during that panel, but it was great. There was also a Pearl Mackie, who played Bill Potts. And of course, you know, in the recent episode, Haunting of Villa, Diodati, the Doctor makes reference of no one else becoming a Cyberman. So it's kind of like a nod to, you know, what happened to Bill Potts in series 10. So, it was cool to listen to her finally. I think they tried to bring her in, I think once before, twice before, I don't know, 3 times before, but I know it was about 3 years ago they tried to bring her. Unfortunately, she had to cancel because she was doing a new stage play and they were just doing the rehearsals and they couldn't let her out to come to Gallifrey. So it was really cool. And again, it was just interesting listening to her talk about, you know, her experiences on Doctor Who and the character of Bill Potts, and knowing that her being a lesbian wasn't the cause or the problem, you know, and that was great because most of the times when you see gay or lesbian characters on TV, that's usually their problem. The problem is trying to them figure out, why am I gay, or what are these feelings? Instead, she is just Bill Potts. She's a lesbian. She likes girls. And really, ultimately, the real problems are the aliens and the issues that she's dealing with the Doctor, which I thought was very enlightening, and that was something that she shared with us. So again, it was great to listen to her talk about her experiences, and that's what panels are about. It's kind of like the DVD bonus extra, where you hear it from their mouths what happened, how they felt about it, what was going on in their mind when they thought about this character, you know, how she first met Peter Capaldi, and a great advice that Peter gave her, which I really loved, was that remind herself that she is an actor. And it's her job to get those scenes right and to do, you know, to stop the production if you have to get into that emotional place that you need to be to give that best performance. And that's amazing, you know, because ultimately a lot of times, like Pearl Mackie said, some actors tend to be very sort of giving and, oh, of course, yeah, whatever. And they forget that their job really is to portray that character and give it that emotion. There was also, of course, Tosin Cole from the new series of Doctor Who, was Ryan Sinclair, which is kind of cool to see him up close and understand, you know, what he likes. For me, he seems to have more energy as Tosin as opposed to Ryan. But it was really cool to have him there and, you know, talk about, you know, if he was the Doctor, he would wear a tracksuit. That would be his Doctor suit. You know, and if you had a choice between a TARDIS and a Sonic, of course it'd be the TARDIS. So it's kind of cool to meet someone from the actual current series, you know, and hear his thoughts about his character and so forth. Now, we all are kind of wondering what's going to happen to Ryan, right? So like the last few weeks, there's all this talk about someone's going to die, or they may all die. All the companions may die. We don't know. So a lot of questions were asked of him where you could just tell that he wants to say something, but he can't. And it may be that, yes, Ryan and the other companions may be dying or may leave the show, or who knows. We do know he has a new show coming up. It's kind of like a detective type show, I think is what he said. Or lawyer. I wasn't paying attention. I apologize. But just as I was watching his facial everything, like just seeing how he would look to the corner or fidget. So he gave a lot. So I know definitely, and we probably all know this, that something is going to happen within the next 2 last episodes of Series 12 of Doctor Who. I don't know. I wouldn't bet. I just, you know, because there's always these twists. They make you think, oh yeah, they're all going to die. And then of course at the end, the Doctor saves all of them and they'll come back for one more series. So I don't know, but I have a feeling that he was giving us a lot of information without talking. I think it was definitely, you know, something's definitely going to happen within the next 2 episodes, but we will see about that. One of the great highlights, though, for me has to be the fact that we saw the episode, The Haunting of Villa Diodati, in a room, a hall room full of fans. I want to say it was more than 1,000, because I think the main hall, I believe, can hold about 1,000 or so such people. So it was great. We got to see it right there with a bunch of fans. It's always energetic. I got to see the 50th anniversary special with fans the actual day during the whole global simulcast. And I've got to say, it is still one of the best days of my life, because it was a pretty rough year, 2013. But at that moment, November 23rd, 2013, sitting in that theater with fans. It was full. Just the whole theater was full of fans. Multiple theaters full of fans, cheering, yelling, screaming. So, this weekend on Sunday, for the first time in its 31-year history, a live episode of Doctor Who was played at the convention, which has never happened before. So that's another first, first time for Christopher Eccleston, first time in 31 years that the convention's been around that there was a live showing of the current episode. And it was awesome. I mean, there was screaming when the Cyberman first came on. Actually, all the way back to when the opening theme started, it was just a roar of screaming and thunder. And it was amazing, because I always enjoy those kind of events where you're with the fans, because they're all there for the same thing. When you go to a movie, you don't know if people are actually fans of that movie or show or whatever. Yeah, it's hit or miss. Every now and then, like, Star Wars, people will clap at the end or scream or whatever. So it is kind of cool, but Whovians can be pretty loud when an episode of Doctor Who is playing. So it was great. And yeah, it was just an amazing time, and I could probably talk about Doctor Who forever. I think I sat in more panels this year than I have, but the reason for that is I know I'm smart. And a lot of the panels, like, for example, with Pearl Mackie and Christopher Eccleston, they're going to fill up really fast. And unfortunately, the main hall of the convention cannot hold all the attendees. So, you're smart. So you're sitting in a panel, I think I sat through like 3 or 4 panels to get to the panel I wanted, just to be sure to have a good seat. But that's not bad. I mean, it's great to listen to panels. And I know, like, in the past, I've listened to Peter Davison, Janet Fielding. Actually, my very first convention, Janet Fielding was there with Peter Davison, I believe. But anyways, I love to have Peter Davison and Janet Fielding together in any panel, because they have this kind of weird, I hate, love you relationship. Not in real life, but the way they talk to each other, it's comedic, and they really do love each other, but it's just perfect. And Janet Fielding has no problems in saying it how she feels and how she wants to say it. So there was a really cool panel where they brought back the Fifth Doctor's team. You had Janet Fielding, Sarah Sutton, Mark Strickton, who played Turlough, which is great because I've never seen him before, nor had I ever seen Sarah Sutton. So it was great to hear the stories and so forth. And of course, it's always brought back to about Adric. Adric's dying, why he had to die. So, but again, it was a great panel. It was a panel towards the end before we saw the episode live, where they had their various, not just actors, but behind the scenes people from the classic Doctor Who series. And we learned a lot of great stuff. Of course, always Fraser Hines, who's been going to this convention for the longest time. He's always there. He's always mingling with the fans. He's always around. And it's just like seeing your crazy uncle. Like, I think he's like Uncle Fraser now in my head, because he's always there every year. And every year you go say hi to him. And every year he's hanging out in the lobby con. And it's great. So that's all. I think I'm going to stop right there, because if not, like I said, I will be here for the next 6 hours talking about how awesome Gallifrey One is. I can't wait to go again next year. It's one of those things that I really look forward to. Like, you can have a really shitty year, and that at least you can look forward to Gallifrey One. I mean, it's nerve-wracking, right? Right up until you are there at the Marriott, ready to go, checked in, you're done, you're good. Okay, now you can have fun. But days leading up to Gallifrey One, it's always just nerve-wracking. You've got to get your cosplay. I'm a cosplayer, so I got to have my cosplay ready. I've got to pack. I've got to have all this stuff ready for the convention. And you're always nervous about meeting the guests. I could not believe about Christopher Eccleston. Even the day of, the Saturday morning, I woke up knowing that I was going to go take my photo with Chris Eccleston. I kept saying, I don't believe it until I actually see it, because it was just one of those things. So, if you are wanting to visit Gallifrey One and you kind of think they're going to bring back characters like that, just be warned. It's not always going to have someone of that caliber like Christopher Eccleston. In recent years, they've tried to bring, but it's a major expense, really, to bring a lot of these major actors over, because, their contracts and so forth. So I warn you, Gallifrey One is not just about the guests. It's really about the environment, the people, and the fun.